A gas station sells one of the most valuable liquids on Earth, all day long, to a country that cannot function without it. And on a single gallon of gas, the owner might keep a few cents. Sometimes that is less than the fee the credit card company takes on that very same sale. So where does the money actually go? You stop at a place like this almost every week. You hand over your card, you fill the tank, and you drive off without a second thought. But the thing you are actually paying for is not the fuel. The fuel is the bait. And once you see what a gas station really is, and who lines up to get paid before the person who owns it, you will never look at that glowing canopy the same way again. The fantasy is simple, and almost everyone has had some version of it. You buy the corner that everybody drives past. Cars line up, the pumps run from morning to midnight, and you take a quiet little cut of every single gallon. It feels recession-proof, because people always need gas, no matter what the economy is doing. So you run the math in your head. Say 400 cars a day, each buying 10 gallons, and imagine you make even a dime a gallon. That is $400 a day from fuel alone, before anyone even walks inside. Multiply that across a year, and it starts to sound like a passive cash machine bolted onto a busy intersection. It sounds like the easiest money in America. The problem is that almost none of that story survives contact with the actual numbers. The math disagrees at nearly every step, and the very first place it falls apart is the quiet assumption buried inside the daydream, the assumption that a gas station is a fuel business at all. Here is the reframe that changes everything. A modern gas station is not a fuel business with a little shop attached. It is a convenience store that happens to sell fuel out front. The trade group NACS, the National Association of Convenience Stores, counts roughly 150,000 convenience stores across the United States, and about 8 in 10 of them sell gasoline. The majority of the fuel bought in this country flows through stores like these, not through standalone gas-only lots. And here is the detail that surprises almost everyone. Around 60% of these stores are single-store operators. This is not an oil giant game played in boardrooms. It is overwhelmingly a small business game, run by families, immigrants, and independent owners who signed personally on the loan. Hold that reframe in your mind for the rest of this video, because it unlocks everything that follows. The fuel is bait, sitting out front to pull cars off the road. The building behind those pumps is the trap that actually catches the profit. But before anyone catches a single dollar of that profit, they first have to get in the door, and getting in is brutally expensive. There are really only two ways in. You buy an existing site, or you build one from the ground up. Buy an existing station and you inherit everything that comes with it. The supply contracts, the aging equipment, the reputation, and the tanks buried under the concrete. Build brand new, and a fuel and store location can easily climb into the low millions once you add up the land, the canopy, the pumps, and the store building itself. Depending on the market and the price of real estate, that number commonly lands somewhere between $2 and $5 million, and often more. It swings hard by location, so treat it as a wide range, not a sticker price. Then there is the part that nobody ever prints on the flyer: underground storage tanks. Those tanks hold thousands of gallons of fuel beneath your feet, and they are one of the most feared liabilities in the entire industry. They cost a small fortune to install, and if one of them ever leaks, the environmental cleanup can drag on for years and quietly erase every dollar of profit you ever made. This is an asset that can send you a bill just for existing. On top of the physical build, you face a branding decision. License major fuel brand and you get instant recognition from the road. But you also sign up for supply contracts, strict image requirements, and specific rules about how you process payments. Run unbranded, and you keep your flexibility, but you lose that automatic pull. And no matter how you pay for all of this, whether through an SBA loan, seller financing, or a brand-backed deal, somebody is charging you interest on top of everything else. Entry costs millions, and the meter starts ticking the very day you sign. So let us say you made it in. Now comes the moment that quietly destroys the entire fantasy: the fuel margin itself. When you pay at the pump, most of that money was already spoken for long before the fuel ever reached the station. Crude oil, refining, and taxes take the giant share, and every one of those prices is set far upstream, completely outside the owner's control. The retailer controls only a thin slice at the very end of the chain. In recent years, the gross margin a station makes on a gallon has run somewhere around 20 to 30 cents, and it spiked well above that in 2022 when the market went haywire. But keep in mind, that is a gross figure. That is before paying for labor, electricity, insurance, maintenance, and the card fees we are about to expose. The net, the money the owner truly keeps per gallon, is often just a handful of pennies. And now the punchline, delivered straight from the industry's own data. Fuel is most of a station's revenue, frequently around 2/3 or more, but it is only a minority of that station's gross profit. Read that one more time, because it is the entire spine of this video. The gallons are loud. They light up the giant sign, they move the most dollars, and they earn the least. The profit is quiet, and it is hiding somewhere else entirely. And the reason fuel margins stay so painfully thin is beautifully simple. The price is posted on a giant sign in numbers you can read from a moving car at 50 miles an hour. The station across the street posts theirs just as loud. Nobody can quietly charge a little more and hope you will not notice, the way a grocery store nudges the price of cereal. That brutal transparency disciplines every operator on the block and keeps the fuel slice razor thin. Loud gallons, quiet profit. And now we arrive at the leak that almost nobody warns you about. Every single time a customer pays with a card, the station pays a fee. It is usually a bit over 2% of the entire sale, somewhere in the range of 2 to 2.5%, plus a small fixed charge for every swipe. On a $60 fill-up, that is well over $1, gone before the owner keeps a single cent. And here is the genuinely cruel part, the twist that makes this business so strange. When gas prices spike, that fee grows right along with them, even though the station is not earning one extra penny per gallon. The fee is a percentage of the sale, so the higher the pump price climbs, the more the card networks collect. They get an automatic raise every time crude oil does. When you are gritting your teeth filling up during an expensive summer, Visa and MasterCard are quietly having one of their best days, and the station owner is having one of their worst. So just how big is this leak across the whole industry? NACS has reported that the convenience store industry pays card fees in the tens of billions of dollars every year, roughly $19 billion in 2022 alone. And in some years, those card fees rival or even exceed the entire industry's net profit. Let that sink in. The fees paid just to process the payments can be larger than everything the whole industry earns. That is not a rounding error. It is one of the single largest costs in the entire business, which is exactly why the industry lobbies so hard to reform interchange fees. The felt reality for an owner is savage. Your busiest, highest dollar days, the days the pumps never stop, can be your least profitable per transaction, because the card fee skimmed the top slice off before you touched anything. You are not just running a gas station. You are running a collection point for the card networks. Cards tax every gallon. So, if the fuel barely earns, and the cards skim the top of every swipe, where does the money actually live? Walk inside, because this is it. This is where the business hides its beating heart. A cup of fountain soda costs the store just pennies in syrup, water, and a cup, and it sells for a couple of dollars. Coffee tells nearly the same story, cheap to brew and priced like a small luxury. Prepared food, packaged snacks, candy, and cold drinks carry gross margins that make fuel look like a public charity. This is the great flip. Out at the pumps, the margin math works against the owner. Inside the store, it finally swings hard in their favor. Now, not everything inside is a gold mine, and it is worth being honest about that. Cigarettes and tobacco move enormous dollars across the counter, but at thin margins. So even there, revenue does not equal profit. It is the same lesson as the fuel, just replayed on a smaller shelf. High revenue is not the same thing as high profit, but lottery tickets, ATM fees, and a dozen little streams all quietly add up. And the real magic has a name. It is called conversion. A driver who pulls in only for gas and never leaves their car is barely worth having. But a driver who pulls in for gas and then walks through that door for a coffee, a snack, and a sandwich is worth many times the fill-up alone. The whole business model lives in that walk. The pumps exist to pull the car off the road. The profit only happens the moment the person inside that car walks through the door. Profit walks inside. The operators who truly understood this stopped thinking of themselves as fuel sellers altogether, and they built empires on it. Look at the destination stores. Wawa and Sheetz built genuine cult followings, not on gasoline, but on hoagies, made-to-order sandwiches, and coffee that people plan their road trips around. Quick Trip pushed hard into kitchens and fresh, fast food. And then there is Buc-ee's, which turned the entire concept inside out. Buc-ee's built stores the size of supermarkets, with famous brisket, homemade fudge, and endless walls of branded snacks, surrounded by rows and rows of gleaming fuel pumps that mostly exist to pull travelers off the highway and into that gigantic retail floor. The fuel gets them off the road. The food and the merchandise send them home with a full bag and a much lighter wallet. People drive out of their way and post videos just to shop there. That is not a gas station. That is a retail destination that happens to sell gas. That is the lesson the whiners absorbed. Treat fuel almost like a lost leader, a traffic driver, and make the real money on food and merchandise. But there is a hard catch waiting for the small owner dreaming on their corner lot. Copying that model takes commercial kitchens, trained staff, fresh supply chains, and a sheer volume of foot traffic that a single independent corner store often simply cannot reach. Food beats fuel. But building a food operation that actually wins is a completely different mountain to climb. So let us step all the way back and answer the real question of this entire video. Who actually wins here? Follow the dollar and watch how many hands touch it before the owner does. Start with the oil majors, the household names glowing up on the canopy. Most of them walked away from running stations years ago. They make their real money upstream, in refining and in licensing their logo. And then they let independent owners take on all of the messy retail risk. The brand on that sign is very often not the owner of the station underneath it. The brand still collects through supply deals and image requirements. The card networks collect on every single swipe, as we just saw. If the operator rents the lot, the landlord collects the rent, whether business is booming or dead. The bank collects its interest on the loan, month after month. And the tax collector and the safety inspectors collect no matter what your profit looks like at the end of the year. By the time every one of those parties has been paid in full, the owner is left standing at the very back of a long line, waiting for whatever happens to be left of their own money. Owner gets paid last. The operators who genuinely win are the ones who mastered the store, who nailed the food, who squeezed the costs. They are not the ones who simply own the pumps. Which brings us to an honest comparison. And to be clear, this is not investment advice, just the plain math laid out on the table. Picture a few $1 million and years of 60 to 80-hour weeks, all poured into one single corner lot. Industry net profit margins sit low, often around 1 to 2% of total sales. And remember the trick hiding inside that number. Most of those sales are fuel dollars that barely earn a thing, so the margin on the money that actually matters is thin and painfully volatile. Now compare that to parking the same pile of capital somewhere passive in a broad index position and going home at 5 o'clock every single day. Weekends off, no midnight calls about a broken pump or a failed inspection. The trade-off could not be starker. Owning a station absolutely can work, but mainly for a hands-on operator who runs a great store, controls costs ruthlessly, and ideally owns the real estate underneath it so the landlord is not one more mouth to feed. One excellent location with a strong food program can genuinely beat the average and build real, lasting wealth. But as a hands-off, passive cash machine, the kind that lives in the daydream, a gas station rarely matches the fantasy people build in their heads. It rewards operators, not spectators. The corner does not pay you for owning it. It pays you for working it, hard, every single day. So here's the whole business in one single breath. The pumps sell most of the revenue and almost none of the profit. The card networks, the fuel brand, the landlord, the lender, and the tax collector all get paid before the owner ever does. A single station can push millions of dollars through those pumps in a year and still keep only pennies on a gallon, sometimes less than the fee for swiping the very card that paid for it. Which is exactly why the people who truly win at this game barely care about gasoline at all. They care about one thing above all else: getting you out of your car and through that door. The fuel was never really the product. The store is the business. There is one more trap that never shows up in the daydream, and it lives entirely in the timing of money. A station owner does not simply sell fuel. They buy it first, in enormous quantities, often paying the distributor before a single gallon has been pumped into a customer's tank. That means a fully loaded delivery can cost tens of thousands of dollars up front, sitting underground as inventory, earning nothing until it slowly drains away one fill-up at a time. The owner has effectively lent their own cash to the ground beneath the lot. Now watch what happens when prices climb. The moment wholesale costs jump, the next delivery costs more than the last one did. But the fuel already in the tanks was bought cheaper, for a brief window that feels like a gift because the old, cheaper fuel sells at the new, higher price. Owners quietly love a rising market for exactly this reason. But the reverse is brutal. When prices fall fast, the owner is stuck selling expensive fuel they already paid for into a market that now demands a lower number on the sign. They eat the difference. In a sharp decline, a station can lose money on every gallon while the pumps look busier than ever. And there is nothing the operator can do but keep selling at a loss until the cheaper delivery finally arrives. Layer working capital on top of that. To keep the tanks full through a price spike, an owner may need to find thousands of extra dollars overnight just to buy the same volume of fuel they bought last week. Rising prices do not only shrink the margin, they demand more cash to stay in the exact same position. Many small operators run a line of credit purely to survive these swings, which means yet another lender collecting interest on the privilege of staying open. And then there is the slow bleed that has nothing to do with markets at all. It is called shrinkage, and it comes in two flavors. Outside, at the pumps, there are drive-offs, drivers who fill up and simply leave without paying. On thin fuel margins, a single stolen tank of gas can wipe out the profit from dozens of honest sales, because the owner still paid full wholesale price for every gallon that rolled away. Inside, there is theft, spoilage, and simple miscounting. The packaged food that expires unsold, the coffee brewed and dumped, the candy that walks out in a pocket. Every one of those losses lands on the high margin side of the business, the exact side that was supposed to save the whole operation. So the owner is squeezed from both directions at once. The fuel demands cash up front and punishes them on the way down. The store, the supposed profit engine, quietly leaks product through the back door and the front. A well-run station tracks all of this obsessively, counting inventory, watching cameras, reconciling tanks to the gallon. The ones who do not track it simply wonder, year after year, where all the money went. Precision is not optional here. It is the entire margin.